Hi learners, I am Dr. Prabhat Dwivedi. Today in my lecture I am going to cover data editing, coding and presentation. Learners, we all understand that data collection doesn't end our task. In fact, this is the beginning. After the data collection, what we need to do is data editing, coding and data presentation so as to analyze the data, so as to get the results of the study. So let's understand the basic terminology related to this. Data editing, coding, data presentation, etc., is can be called in one word as data processing. So let's understand what a common terminology related to this data processing is. Data processing is for coding and entering data for all respondents, for all questions on a questionnaire. This is once we collect data, then we need to do coding, editing, cleansing, compilation, presentation, etc. This is known as, in one word as data processing. Whatever we do with the data so as to analyze the data is known as data processing. Data cleaning is the process of preparing data for analysis by removing or modifying data that is incorrect, incomplete, irrelevant, duplicate, or improperly formatted. As cleaning means, removing some impurity. So this is the process by which we remove impurity of our data. And then data analysis is the process of cleaning, transforming and modeling data to discover useful information for decision making. You must be understanding these terms, but thinking of that all the terms are little bit similar. They may be a little bit common, but all the terms are quite different. Data processing may be relating to all the activities being done with the raw data. Data cleaning is part of that, and finally when data is ready, this is analyzed. Now let's understand these steps in this particular diagram. Here we do coding, followed by data entry, followed by editing, followed by data analysis. And at every stage, what is being done? Error checking and verification is done. So this is graphical presentation we can understand from this point. Now, what is editing? What can we call data editing? It is in fact the process in which the data is ready for the purpose of coding and is transferred to the data storage. This is known as editing. Its purpose is to ensure the completeness, consistency and reliability of data. So for three basic purposes data editing is done. Number one, consistency or uniformity of data. The purpose of doing data editing is to get consistency or uniformity in the data, then for the completeness of data, and finally for the accuracy of the data. Now let's take one by one. First, data editing for consistency or uniformity. What do we mean by this? Data consistency or consistency in data or uniformity in data. Consistency edits compare different answers from the same record to ensure that they are coherent with one another. It should not have outliers. So if there are outliers, we need to check them out so as to ensure that our data is uniformly distributed, or data is homogeneous, not that much heterogeneous. It is for the purpose of detection of errors actually. And detection of not only errors but outliers as well. Outliers are those values which are either extremely large or extremely small from the rest of the data set. So in consistency step, we need to find out, we need to check such kinds of values which are extremely larger or extremely smaller from the rest of the data, and other errors for correction. We do correction in those errors if some such outliers are visible to us which do not fit in the rest of the data set. For an example, if a person is declared to be in the 0 to 14 age group but also claims that he or she is retired, then how can it be? So there is a consistency problem between the two answers. I mean, it cannot fit with the data set, and both are contradictory. How can it be when person is in teenage almost and can retire? Cannot happen. Now, data editing for accuracy or for correcting out of order answers. What happens occasionally, the investigator makes a mistake and records an impossible answer. For an example, if an interviewer recorded birth of a respondent as August 5, 1878. Now we can simply understand how can somebody be alive who was born in 1878? Not at all possible. So what can be the likely answer? Maybe August 5, 1978 instead of August 5, 1878. So this is what the editing is done for correcting an out of order answer. Let's take another example of it. Suppose for a question, how much red chilies does your family consume in a month? The answer recorded is say 3 kilograms. No, we can easily understand how can a family of 3 persons consume 3 kilograms of chilies in a month? Cannot be possible. So might be the correct answer 0.3 kilogram, and point might have been omitted. The decimal might have been omitted. So we need to correct it. This is how data editing for accuracy is required to correct out of order answers. Now, the third category of data editing performed for the purpose of completeness. Completeness of data. What happens sometimes, questionnaire is almost complete, but somehow one answer or part of it is unanswered, and that is technically termed as non-response item. So this data editing for completeness is done to reduce effect of item non-responses. Item non-response is in the technical term is used for an unanswered question on the otherwise completed questionnaire, resulting in missing data or missing value. In many situations, what happens, the decision rule is to do nothing but missing data and simply nothing with missing data and simply leave the answer blank. In most of the cases, we are not supposed to put any proxy answer from our side. But sometimes what happens, for analysis purpose, this is this is required. This is need for the analysis. So we need to give a value. We need to give an approximate value to this missing value or data. So in such a cases, two things can be done. Two things are often done. One, plug value. What happens in plug value? This is an answer that an editor plugs in based on the predetermined decision rule so as to permit data analysis. This is technically known as plug-in value. And another activity which can be done to complete data, to fill a value, missing value, is imputation. What is this? Imputation is the process of replacing missing data with substituted value through statistical algorithms that provided best guess. So these are two tasks which may be performed to fill the missing value. And today, there are softwares who can perform this without human bias. So once we decide that we have to get a missing value, we can perform such activities. I will not go in detail here, otherwise this can be done with the help of SPSS and other softwares, which is not possible right now. But while performing data editing, we must think one basic point, that as much as possible, first we should avoid putting missing values, and if that is required, we must avoid biased editing. Our bias should not creep in while data editing. We must think in our mind, we must keep it in mind always. Now there are two types of data editing which can be done in case where data editing can be done. If this question is answered, this can be answered by two options. One, the researcher can perform field editing, and another one, this editing can be done in-house. So there are two types of editing which is done. Field editing is what? This is in fact preliminary editing by a field supervisor on the same day as the interview takes place. Its purpose is to catch technical omissions, check legibility of handwriting, and clarify responses that are logically or conceptually inconsistent. This is good practice if a researcher or an interviewer catches such omissions on the same day and correct them on the basis of the experience with the respondent, because it's very easy to recall things or experience with that respondent. So that can be done during the field survey. Another is type of editing which can be performed in-house, which is a rigorous editing job performed by centralized office staff. When the data has been collected and the data is under the processing stage, at that time this editing can be done by the editing staff in-house. Now let's understand what is the coding. In fact, coding is the process of identifying and classifying each answer with a numerical score or other character symbol. This is what the coding is. We simply provide a number or a figure to a particular word or particular sentence or a particular option of a question. That is what is known as data coding. So code is a rule used for interpreting, classifying, and recording data in the coding processes. The numerical or other statistical other symbols may be assigned to the raw data. That is what are called codes. Let's understand 3-4 other terms like field. Field is a collection of characters that represents in single type data. That is known as field. Record, that is a collection of related fields. And file, that is a collection of related records. And data matrix is a rectangular arrangements of data into rows and columns. These are 4 terms which are related with each other and which are often used while doing data coding, data entering, data editing. Let's take an example of data coding. Like there is a question, what is your gender? So like there are 3 options: male, female, other. You can give 1 number to male, 2 number to female, and 3 to other. That is nothing else but the code. 1 code is given to male, 2 code is given to female, and 3 code is given to other. You can do other ways as well. Like you can give 3 to male, you can give 1 to female, you can give 2 to other. That's your choice. You can give any code to any word. That is your choice. Second question, which game do you play? Like their options are cricket, hockey, football, badminton, tennis, chess, carom, wrestling, other. And you can give quotes, write 1 from cricket to 2 to hockey, 3 to football, badminton 4, tennis 5, chess 6, carom 7, wrestling 8, other 9. That's how you can give code to these games. And one more question which shows you the codes, that is what is your level of play. Like if your level is novice, you can give 1 or any other. To average 2, fair 3, advanced 4, expert 5. That's what you can give codes to. The be allotted to the questions required. Codes are allotted to options which are used at the time of data analysis. Now data presentation. Another part of this lecture is data presentation. Now the question arises, the data collected through the data collection tool or the way we have done it is now ready for the presentation. So how we can present the data? What can be the ways of data presentation? Let's understand this. So there are typically 3 ways of data presentation. 1, we can present the data in textual form. Another way is tabular form. Data can be presented in the form of table, like table of rows and columns. And the third one is graphical presentation of data. So let's understand one by one. Textual presentation of data is simply in the form of paragraph. This is the written and can be read. So there is nothing in the form of figure or table or any graph. So this may be combination of text with little bit figures, but not only figures. There can be only textual presentation of data, but if required, maybe little bit figures are used, but texts are definitely used. That is what the textual presentation of data. Second presentation form is tabular form, but before that, let's take an example of textual form of presentation of data. This is before you. Like a paragraph goes the way Confirmed cases of corona in India crossed 100 on March 15, 1000 on March 28, 5,000 on 7th April, and 10,000 mark on 14th April. The death toll crossed 50 on 1st April and 100 on 5th April. There is a data related to the corona pandemic and its impact in India, but that's not in tabular or any graphical form of data, but this is in fact textual form of data. Let's understand tabular presentation of data here. In tabular presentation, what we do, we organize data into statistical tables. In fact, this is the oldest way of data presentation, and not only the oldest, this is the simplest and the most popular even today. This is systematic organization of data in rows and columns. Even layman can read, understand, and interpret such kinds of data presentation in tabular form. So this is very important form of data presentation. This was popular, this is popular, and this will remain popular because of its merits, because of its simplicity, because of its readability, because of its interpretability. That is what the feature of tabular data presentation. Let's take example of it. Here, this is before you table. There are rows, there are columns. In first column, serial number. Second column says name of state. Third column is total cases of corona, confirmed cases of corona. And next is let's enlarge this slide. It is looking quite small. I cannot read it. In fact, it's not getting enlarged. So there is count cases, cured cases, and there are death in the last column. So rows denote states, and columns denote various characteristics like name of state. In rows states are written. In columns, second column shows total confirmed cases, third column shows cured cases, and last column shows death cases. This is very simple. We can understand by first row. Andhra Pradesh has 683 cases, confirmed corona cases, and cured are 16, death are 9, rest of other are active corona cases. This is very simple to understand. Data organized in the tabular form. Now the graphical presentation of data. There are several ways to present the data in graphics. Those we can now go through each one by one. Like first, bar graph. This is used for discrete data set to show the relationship or comparisons between groups. Then comes histogram. This is used for continuous data set to show relationships and comparisons between groups. The only difference between bar graph and histogram is that bar graph is used with discrete data, whereas histogram is used with continuous data. Pie chart or circular graph shows shares effectively. If something is complete and divided in 4 parts, so this can denote the share of every part in one pie. That is 360-degree circle. That is what pie chart is. Line graph, that is mostly used in case of time series data. When data is collected on time point scale, then this line graph is used. Then comes a scattered diagram. This often is used for depicting relationship between two variables, for determining how closely they are related. Our variable is plotted, one variable is plotted on the horizontal axis, whereas the other variable is plotted on the vertical axis. And then, the data is plotted on the graph between x and y axis. Pictogram or pictograph uses small pictures or figures, often called isotopes, for comparisons. Each picture represents a definite quantity. Now let's take each of these graphical presentations one by one. Let's see the bar graph. How does it look like? This is a bar graph. This shows that every bar shows the cases of confirmed corona cases date wise. On which date how many confirmed corona cases were. That is what the diagram shows daily new cases of corona in India. Dates are given, on which date how many new cases registered. If there is no new case on one date, that will not be mentioned over here. That is what the bar graph to depict. Every bar depicts a quantum of every group of data. This is histogram. Here every day what is happening in case of corona, like that is what it is showing. There is no gap between these bars, but in bar graph there may be gap, but in histogram there is no gap. Every bar is put close to another without any gap. So that is what bar diagram is. That's why it is called that histogram is used for continuous data set. Now pie chart. Here for an example, the mortality ratio of corona patients in India is like males who got succumbed due to corona are 30%, whereas females were 70% so far. So there are males and females who have succumbed due to corona, and the ratio is shown over here. Males are 30%, whereas females are 70%. The complete mortality figure is given, proportion is given here. That is how we can show something. If we want to show in share, we can show this with the help of pie chart. This is what the line graph is. Every day the data is collected, so this data can be shown on line chart, line graph, because this is on timeline date wise, so this can be shown date wise. Here the line chart, line graph shows you active corona cases date wise. Now scattered diagram. So here the picture shows mortality percentage with respect to the age group. At what age group of corona patients mortality is what? So that may be the case. Age group on x-axis, mortality percentage on y-axis. Data has been plotted over here. So this can show you whether mortality depends or mortality has any relationship with the age of a patient or not. So this line shows that there is a relationship between mortality of a patient to his age. So that is what is showing the correlation between mortality and age group of corona patients. This is what the figure dots show. Dots are plotted between x and y axis, and that's why this is called often scattered diagram or plotogram or plot diagram, right? Next, this is again an example of this scattered diagram. This is here the relationship between height versus height and weight of a person is shown here. So this graph tries to show you the relationship or the variability of weight of somebody with its height. So height with respect to weight or weight with respect to height is presented here with this datogram with this scattered diagram. Now lastly, the pictogram. What pictogram shows? As I told you earlier, in pictogram there are isotopes or small pictures or small figures, and one figure denotes a particular quantity of some variable. There may be there one figure may be used, or two or three or more than three figures may be used, more than one picture may be used, but each picture will show you a quantity of particular variable. And here we can say that on Monday, how many cupcakes were used? 50. So this is how we can interpret it. Thank you so much. For any query, I'll connect with you people on Zoom. Thanks a lot. Thank you.